All right, party people, what's up? We are going to do another starter today. We're going to do a Python one, something different. I'm going to do the whole thing differently than I ever do, trying a lot of new things. So we're going to do Streamlet. I'm not really a Streamlet expert, but it looks really cool. I've heard it's used widely in the data science community. And my hope is that if for some reason Streamlet, which has its own cloud, is not a fit for deploying your Streamlit application, that this demo today will give you an easy path to deploying Streamlit on your own AWS or GCP cloud account using Coherence and hopefully get a great developer experience and maybe even more than you bargained for. So yeah, I'm going to do a different way of onboarding today. I've got this new empty starter template that I'm going to try creating an app with to try a pure coherence flow, not involving Cloud Shell at all. So I'm going to go create a new repository. I'm going to use this empty starter. So, this is public. You could go to this URL right here, coherence platform/empty starter. You click use this template, you go create a repository. It's going to give you the option of your own places that you could create stuff. So for me, that's going to be Coherence platform demos. I'm going to call it Streamlet. We've been doing the dates, so I'll do July 18 demo. Streamlet starter for YouTube. It's going to be public. All right, so it's going to clone the repo. It's going to just be an empty repo with a README and a license. You could delete the license if you wanted to. We don't care. Not much IP in this thing. And JKUI, misspelled that. So let's just fix that because that'll get it. Okay. July 18 demo. So we're just going to keep this URL around. We are going to go to app with coherence. Right, we're going to go into application. Yeah, we're going to log out. We're going to log in as my YouTube demos. We're going to check. I don't think I have any apps here yet, so I keep deleting these as I make them. I'm going to show you delete working at the end as well. Sometimes it doesn't in Coherence, but I test it all the time. It should work, except you have to delete your database from your cloud provider before doing it, and sometimes we don't message that well, so we're going to create a starter app. We're going to name this July 18 demo. I'm going to do GCP again, just because I've got the same July 14 demo Rails project that's ready to go and feeling lazy. I take this GitHub URL. We're going to use this repo, not one of these other starters. The main branch will be main, the region will be US East. You can change those if you have that requirement. I've already installed the Coherence platform demos, all repos permission to the Coherence production app. If you didn't do that, you'd click these buttons and each of your users, which I've already done for this demo account against that app, will all off against that app. And so the tokens will be limited to those scopes and repos. I'm now going to install this cloud account, our service account, managed service account, Coherence managed service accounts. It's the Google Cloud project. Into your Google account. So we just paste that address. We choose owner. Sometimes it takes a second for this to show up in the system. Sometimes I even refresh the page to make it go faster. Not sure why that works. I'm sure it's something Coherence is doing wrong. This owner. How that doesn't exist. Let's see if that works. No. Interesting. I'm sure I copied it right. Looks right to me. Pause this and see if something's up. Okay, so I'm not actually sure what was wrong. I just waited a few minutes and pasted this. Obviously something on the Coherence end, but yeah, that is saved. So I can now close this tab, hit continue. Okay, so now I am at the configure info step. I'm going to see some errors because obviously I don't even have like a coherence YAML. This 404, coherence config fetch, found not found, and there's no services. So if you read the docs, you're supposed to have a coherence YAML. Our repo looks like this. But what I'm going to do is use what we call the config checker, the validator, to fix this. Okay, one second. This is mixing up projects that I'm working on. I'm going to unmix this. This would never happen to somebody that wasn't messing around with it like me. One second. All right, so I'm going to click start just like you would. So, the idea here is this is a cloud IDE. It's VS Code. It's just like what Coherence offers in our workspace system. Once your app is onboarded, we have per branch, per user cloud IDEs with the same configuration as our full stack branch previews and our production deployments. So dev to prod, all with one config, but this is during onboarding a way to edit your repo on the branch you're onboarding to, as well as check if your YAML and app are compatible with Coherence as much as we can. So yeah, let's see how it works. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is add a coherence.yaml. So you can see I'm on main. This uses the GitHub app and token that we already authenticated, to set this all up. And if I do git branch, you'll see I have my main. So we're going to keep this tab for a minute. So I'm going to take, Coherence as a Flask example starter. It's a different Python application, but it's the most similar thing we got. And we're going to allow this to share our clipboard. We're going to paste this in here. We're going to name this Streamlet. And then, so I don't need this marketing page for Streamlet anymore. Got the place Streamlet using Docker. I found this documentation. This is, provided by them. So we're going to go to the Dockerfile section. We're going to add our Dockerfile. Don't really need all of it. Coherence doesn't care about this expose. It does its own health check and port management. And entry point we're going to define in Coherence YAML, so we don't really need any of that. Then I'm going to make a new file called Dockerfile. Put this here. I think this is missing a copy step. Oh, this is a git clone, right? So we're going to run, instead of that, we're going to run copy requirements.txt dot. Then we're going to run copy dot after the install so that we get Docker cache behavior. That's going to be our Docker file. Then we're going to run, we're not going to need this example anymore. We need the Streamlet with Docker thing. And we're going to look at their walkthrough. So they add this in requirements.txt. This in there. They have this Streamlet app Python file. We'll just copy this whole thing. Streamlet app.py. Drop that in. Great. Okay, if I do status, you'll see we've added basically just the stuff from this page and the stuff from the Coherence docs under popular frameworks under Flask. And yeah, then we're going to take the entry point and we're going to turn this into the Coherence command. In our YAML, you can see it's the same. The weird quoting is the same thing Docker does. Entry point, I think they have alternate syntaxes. And the one thing I'd love to be able to do is auto restart my dev server. This is for the workspace, the cloud IDE. As I talked about, this similar VS Code environment is actually going to run the dev server, which is there in the Coherence product after complete onboarding. Then this is what will run in AWS or GCP. I'm going to change the port to $port. This is documented. I don't have a Streamlet section on popular frameworks like I have for other starters I've done. So I'm just kind of looking at docs as they go. But one thing I'm doing is I know the docs, obviously, and the one thing I'm doing is just making sure that I follow some of the things it talks about. So pass health checks. We do mention we want you to listen on $ port successfully. This is going to be injected by Coherence providers. In most of the other starters, we sort of, in popular frameworks, we do something similar in our examples. Redwood listens to port by default. So that's all Redwood. $ port. Rails listens to port by default. Anyway, that's the idea. So it's the YAML, and then I was going to try and get auto reload. So reload streamlet server. I'll save. So if I save the files, I'll refresh. That's it. I think auto refresh is really what I want. Restart. Streamlet. Configuration server. Run on save. Automatically rerun script and files modified. That's what I want. So we are going to put in server section of .streamlet/config.toml. We can also pass this as config flag --server.this. Let's see. I'm not sure about the capitalization here, but we will find out. Okay, so I'm going to use the VS Code Git UI. I'm going to see that I have my 4 new files. So this I just copy and pasted is good. This I copy and pasted is good. This I checked myself. This overall looks good. We're missing the port on the thing. So let's just edit that. Okay, looks good. We'll add all this. We'll do adding streamlet app. All right, then we're gonna, before we push, we can run the config checker. I should have even done that before I commit, but see these things are in sync. Clear. I do co-CLI config test. All right, waiting on results. So I'll close these docs, I'll close these docs. If this passes, we'll come back here and rescan. And we'll push, and then we'll sear deploy. Pause this for a minute. Takes a few minutes. All right, so got distracted by something else, but came back. So this didn't work on the first pass. The container built, which is great. The Streamlet server did not start and listen on port 8080. But since I work at Coherence, I have some inside knowledge. This is why this thing is in alpha. I think we're hitting an edge case in it not working that I want to fix, and I've made some notes about, but I don't think we're going to fix it today. So what we're going to do is go ahead and push this. I don't think it would affect most of your apps. Something to do with the Dockerfile that I wrote. Go ahead and push this. This will now show up here. This has the Dockerfile we added, the YAML, the requirements, and the Streamlet app. One thing I did notice is the requirements don't have SQL Alchemy, so a lot of real Streamlet apps seem to use that. I'm going to have to add that to requirements, but pretty straightforward. So we can close this thing. We're going to hit rescan. It should find the updated YAML. It'll take a minute. Awesome, it did find Streamlet. So I'm going to go ahead and configure and have some confidence that this will work. And so I haven't touched anything except the GitHub UI and the Coherence UI. Obviously besides GCP so far. So I can close this now. I'm going to go ahead and proceed through this. We're not making a database, so this should be faster than 20 minutes. We'll see how long it takes. yeah, here's a list of everything Coherence is doing for me right now in my cloud project, creating a bunch of stuff. Here the most important things are going to be the SSL certs, the load balancer components, URL map, and HTTP proxy and forwarding rule, the Cloud Run service, which is what's actually going to run this thing, artifact registry, which is where the container images are going to be stored, service accounts for building the images and for running the image in Cloud Run, enabling various services, the service accounts that these permissions refer to, and some buckets for public assets. And yeah, I think that's the bulk of what's going to get created here. And obviously dive into all the information about this in our docs. Coherence for GCP talks about what we set up for you, when and why and how. Happy to answer any questions if you get in touch with us. Lots of options up here. So I'll pause this while it's running. And all right, so it looks like that initial configuration finished, and I had to come in here and click submit build once. This first one failed to submit. Sometimes there's some race conditions against Google. So now I've got my first feature. This gives me a deployment, which won't work yet. It also gives me a warning on Google. SSL certs can take some time. AWS, they're faster. But once this deploy stage succeeds, we'll have a deployment at this URL, and each feature in Coherence is going to get its own deployment. So I can make a new one. I can make a new branch just like this, branch 1. We'll make it based off main. Also, I can have an existing branch on GitHub, and this will just find that and link my feature up to it. I can also enable the setting to auto-create features for every pull request on Coherence. There's other settings on the settings page. And yeah, now we're just waiting for this build to complete, but I can also make static environments, let's say like a demo or a sales demo, whatever I need. As relates to Streamlet, some other relevant things I thought I'd show. So in the Coherence YAML, for each service, there is a URL path. So common config is mentioned here, URL path. So this is like a URL prefix that will route to different containers, either in Cloud Run or in ECS Fargate, depending on if it's GCP or AWS. And so that you could combine with Streamlet server config. Let's say you had like a bunch of different Streamlet apps that you wanted to serve distinctly, not as different components of the same app. You can change the base URL path, even using a flag in the command like we did in our Coherence YAML. If I go to GitHub, Coherence Platform Demos, July, what's today, 18 demo. Right, so like here, I passed the flag for run on save. I could pass the same thing for base URL path and set it equal to whatever I set as URL path for each service. And then I could have, different deployments of these that would even scale separately, and they would use the same domain. And within each domain have /path1, path2, path3, path-based routing to the different containers. All right, awesome. So my build worked. It took 2 minutes, 19 seconds. I can see this running. And now we're in our deploy step. So we can see that happening here. Once it deploys, we'll see it in Cloud Run, and we can see the logs for if it is starting up. Wait for those. That's really what we're waiting for. And then now we've had a successful build, I can start a workspace. This is a Cloud IDE. Each user, it has their own workspace on each branch, so it's per user per branch. Same with the toolbox. This is a way to connect to a Cloud Shell for just this environment, all the same variables, including shared variables, which are available here across all my feature environments and non-production environments. I can add those easily and then override them on each feature environment scope if I wanted to. And then obviously I can add ones just for this environment as well. And those are shared in the toolbox and in the workspace. They're automatically loaded, except for appropriate things like a database URL or other per environment resources locally. And yeah, these two are per user per branch, as opposed to this branch stuff being shared. Each push to this branch, regardless of who makes it, is going to show up here. So let's see if this thing's working. Workspace preview. Wow, look at this. I do see some kind of Streamlet thing running. So yeah, this actually does work, and I could go ahead and edit the Streamlet app, and I could say Coherence made this page. Word. Right, so that should, yeah, look at that. Coherence made this page, typo and all. So my dev environment is working. I have a Cloud IDE, and I can, on each branch, start a new one of these, as I showed you really seamlessly. I'll show you what that workflow looks like right now. But let's see, this build also works. So I'm going to close the local dev. I'm going to continue to preview. SSL certs do take some time on GCP, but I'm just going to ignore it for now, and it will resolve eventually. And yeah, this is the full deployment of that app. So, if I committed this to main, which we could do just for fun, right? So I can commit using this. I can say copy, edit, and I can push. I could also have just used my, just like I showed you in the config checker during onboarding. You can also use all your good commands here. It's all authenticated using the auth tokens you gave us. So I go back. I already see my build queued. It's going to do the same thing. It'll probably be marginally faster. The queue time should be less. So we already see that because Google knows this is not a new project. And then the build stage should mostly hit cache, should be faster than this. The deploy stage, probably not going to get much faster. Unfortunately, that's Cloud Run deploy times. But yeah, while we're waiting for that build, I can already show you. So I could make, we're going to make a big upgrade. We're going to make version 2. This is going to make a new feature. This will have its own branch deployment. It's going to take some time for that to happen. And after the build, that'll happen. But in the meantime, I can create a workspace because it is forked off of main. So I already have the build for that image, that commit. You can see, the URL has just got the environment name in it. I could also add a demo environment just so you see how this works. And then from either of these, I can go to any commit and I can promote it into the demo environment. I'm not actually going to do that, but I will. What do I care? But that's generally how it's going to work. And yeah, version 2, I've got my workspace now, and I could go ahead and I could make some edits to my app again. Here we'll see, I already have my preview running likely. So yeah, this is already here. So I could say, let's make this page version 2. Yeah, obviously you would change more than just this copy if you're really doing this, but I've already got a second Cloud IDE. I can actually start both of these at once. So I'll open this in another tab, and I've got version 1. And on main, I have this open, and look, I've got 2 different full working, they both have their own preview environments, version 2 and the other one, their own IDEs, and I can, go crazy editing all this stuff. Don't drive yourself too crazy with it. And yeah, so you can see the build went down to 34 seconds from 2 minutes 19. So it does get faster as it caches. And yeah, look at that. 2 minutes later, we're done. Still have our SSL issue, but Coherence made this page. There's our deploy. Yeah, so that is a really quick run through of what we can offer for Streamlit users. If you want to dive in deeper, we're really happy to help with onboarding, help with migration. You might have a more complex setup than this and need to think about more moving pieces. And if so, please get in touch. We're happy to give you a great experience. Have a good day.